Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Bruce Starr Show. It's exciting to be bringing these shows to you, sharing vital information about what's going on in the world. I've been in the world of television and radio, talk shows, and producing for over 25 years. And I've been lucky enough to meet with some incredible people presenting lots of vital information on my shows, and today is no different. We have with us someone who I've known indirectly for a very long time. His name is Dr. Steve Lanoff, and Steve and I came together sitting next to each other on the couch no more than a couple of weeks ago, and we found out some very interesting things that about each other. Like, for instance, he asked me where I went to school, and I said, well, I grew up in Yonkers. He says, oh. And I don't know how exactly this went, but then he asked me I asked him what high school he went to, and he said Roosevelt. Well, that's where I went to high school. And I didn't make too much of it. I didn't make any, oh my God, that's where I went to high school. And then I don't know who asked who what, but I said to him, what year did you go to Roosevelt? And he said he graduated in 70, and I graduated in 71. So we spent a lot of the same years together going to Roosevelt High School. And he grew up in a neighborhood very close to me. And I want to welcome you to the show, Steve. Thanks so much for being with us today.
It's a pleasure being with you, Bruce.
So we have a little bit of feedback. So someone's going to need to shut down their audio.
Turn your phone off.
Okay. So, Steve, tell me a little bit about you. I know you grew up in Yonkers, and tell us a little bit about how you became Dr. Steve Lanoff.
Okay. It's funny. We probably passed each other in the halls many times, and we didn't know it.
Absolutely.
Well, it was a good thing that destiny brought us together.
Again, yes.
So going back many years ago, my brother was studying medicine, and some of my good friends were studying medicine. So I decided I should study medicine also. So I went out of the country to a foreign medical school, and it was fascinating. I loved it. So I got my degree, and practicing medicine was fascinating. The education was incredible. After being in the industry my whole thing went black now.
I see
Bruce,
you. I see you.
Okay, I don't see you, so I guess it doesn't matter then, right?
Yes, it doesn't matter.
Okay, because I don't know how to change that. Okay. So what was I saying?
I was asking you about your background.
Right. So I went to medical school, and I was, working in different hospitals in New York and various states, and it was really an incredible experience. And after doing it for a prolonged period of time, I sort of felt that the whole institution could have been doing things better. I saw there was a lot of corruption going on. There was undue influence by pharmaceutical companies and insurance companies that were interfering with the quality of care people were getting. So I went from doing internal medicine for a while, and I tried to do psychiatry, thinking that would be more up my alley. And it was for a while. I worked in the emergency room in next to Montefiore Hospital in the Bronx, and it was an incredible experience. You see more trauma there than people and doctors out of state see in their whole lifetime. So it was really an unbelievable experience. But then parts of it were very sad, because you really see how some people suffering from mental diseases, it's just a terrible thing to endure. And we were putting them on these psychotropic medications, Haldol, of that nature. And it was really making them worse long term, having a lot of unintended side effects that were often bizarre. So I left the industry and just was lucky. I got to travel around, and I was in Europe. And I was there, and I met this fascinating Russian physicist and cellular biologist. And speaking to him was amazing, because he gave me what my epiphany was, and he told me about a different healing system. And about ways to work with people and getting them healthy that was totally alien to what I've learned. And he taught me about plant-based medicinals, and he taught me about ozone, which is an incredible thing that can almost energize everybody. So I learned many different things, and so I started practicing those things because I was really interested in it. And I worked in different places, like in Israel and Germany for a little while, and I studied with some doctors that were doing this type of healing out in the Midwest, Dr. Schallenberger, and I loved it. So I opened up a clinic with my partner, and we had that up on Indian Town Road in Jupiter. And we were open for almost 4 years, and we were doing some remarkable healings. We were helping people with all types of viruses, some people with CA. We did a lot of good stuff for the people that were willing to take the chance and go to a very different sort of route than conventional medicine with support. To them, it was sort of wah-wah. So that made it more difficult, but for the people that were desperate and wanted to stay with it, we helped them. And that was a very beautiful thing.
So was it the kind of thing where if they came to you, they weren't about to tell all their friends and family about it because it was not quite accepted by the medical profession?
Well, I lost a lot of patients doing that. We did, because, you know, even though they said, yeah, we're feeling better, but then they would go to their medical doctor and said, well, that's just, you know, placebo. And of course, they didn't adhere to what we were doing a lot of times, but there were plenty that stayed with us that we did help do better.
And I know you worked with ozone. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I'm glad you asked that, Bruce, because ozone is the most remarkable gas that can help everyone do better in life. It's really amazing. And it's incredible because how I was introduced to it, when I was working with this Russian physicist, a lady came up that he knew, and she had herpes 1 all over her face. It was like totally blotched out and somewhat ugly looking. And I didn't even know what ozone was. So we went into his office, and he puts her on this intravenous thing, and he starts bubbling these molecules into her body. And I'm a little bit freaking out because, to me, you know, you don't put in bubbles going into your system, you get an embolism. So I'm like, say, what are you doing? You know, he says, relax, relax. It's okay, Stevie. He spoke in this crazy Russian accent, you know. And it was just good. And he pumped in ozone into her body, and it was just great. Nothing happened. She didn't get an embolism. And I saw her about 2 weeks later, and her face was still a little blotchy, but all cleared up. And as far as I was in touch with them and my friend, the doctor, she never got a relapse. It was just knocked out the virus. So I was like saying, wow, this is more than incredible. So we can cure herpes. So I went on to study further things about it. And I realized that you can put ozone into your body. You can't breathe it in because it's much too heavy for the alveoli, which are the cells that take in the oxygen from the hemoglobin into the blood. So what we did is we learned to put it into the body intravenously. We did it rectally, vaginally. And for special people that were a little bit more under the weather, having some pathologies, we took out their blood. We took out like about 1.5 liters of their blood, and we ozonated. And this is the most remarkable thing that just blows you away. You see their brown, sluggish, very viscous blood, and then all of a sudden, boom, we hit it with the ozone gas, and instantaneously, this is just like incredible, it turns into bright red, healthy blood, fully oxygenated. And then we would just put that back into dripping it back into their body. And then it sort of gives them a lease on their life. It's wow, they can get healthy again. Sometimes you have to do it multiple times, you know, but it's pretty amazing. And they recuperated really nicely a lot of times.
So are they still using ozone? I'm sure it's not, you know, completely accepted, but is ozone still being used?
There are some doctors that, you know, they risk, because if you're part of the AMA, and you use ozone, they see you as a quack, and they don't want to acknowledge its amazing benefits. And the pharmaceutical companies don't want to know about it because ozone is literally the best natural antibiotic in existence. There's nothing else better. It will kill all viruses, all bad bacteria, and simultaneously oxygenate all the cells that need to be oxygenated, even the ones that are being sluggishly done in the circulatory system. So that's the amazing part. And yeah, there's like doctors out in the Midwest that do it. There's a doctor on the other side of Florida that does it. You can Google them. These are guys that, you know, been using ozone for years, and they tout it as being, almost like the panacea.
I know right now you probably still have to be careful about talking about something like that, but you and I know, and our group knows, our kind of group that's been studying what's going on in the world that you're not watching on TV. You can't see this on TV, but we're learning that not too far off in the near future, not talking about next year or 2 years or 3 years, but sometime this year, there's a possibility that the world is going to go through a tremendous change, and that we're hearing that over 600 patents, health-related patents, are going to be freed up and used to help heal people. So we're not going to really talk too much about that right now, but in the very near future, people will be able to get this ozone and a lot more to help them get healthy without going through operations and chemotherapies and things like that.
Well, yeah, ozone is amazing because, basically, we're oxygen beings. We live on breathing in oxygen. So the more oxygen you get into your system, the healthier you are. And a lot of the diseases happen when you get poor circulation from toxins, the bad foods, and stuff like that clog up the vessels, the veins, and the arteries. And what happens is when you put ozone into them, it's so powerful, it gets into all those areas and boosts the circulation, and it breaks up into what they call singlet oxygen molecules, and that innervates all the cells. That's how it functions.
So I know you're so knowledgeable about so many different things. Let's talk about what some of the more common problems are now that a lot of people are suffering with: high blood pressure. Maybe we can talk about cancer and not talk about cancer, but diabetes. People are the hospitals and doctors are dealing with this in a very conventional Western medicine way, but there are other ways to deal with these problems. And I know you've researched this. And share a little bit what you know about how people can help themselves.
Well, basically, Bruce, you're right. It just goes back to really simplistically eating healthy foods. Our body and circulatory system is just like the carburetor of a car. When you put bad energy into the car and you put in some crude fuel, it'll conk out immediately. When you put crude or bad poisons or some toxins into the body's so brilliant and resilient, it fights it off for a while, but then it reaches a critical point, like a threshold, when it can't protect itself anymore. And then the immune system gets compromised and the cells start deteriorating. And that's really what breaks people down. So basically, you have to eat healthy, you have to eat organic. Monsanto's poisoned the soil and the food for everybody internationally, which, European countries banned it, but a lot of them. But here it's like, whoa, people are still doing glyphosate, and they don't realize that's just the same thing that was banned as DDT, which they arranged a little bit differently, and they called it glyphosate. And that is so toxic to life everywhere, and especially when we eat in foods that have that in it, that accumulates in you after a while, and boom, you could get cancer from that and a lot of other things.
So what's really sneaky about the way the poisons are in the foods is it's not like they dump a whole lot of poisons on an apple or an orange. It's sprayed with a little bit of the poison, supposedly to keep out the bugs. But if you eat an apple a day, like they say, and it's not organic, you're going to be taking in poisons into your system very slowly. And the poisons, if you're super healthy, might get flushed out of your body. You know this better than I do, but I'll share a little bit what I know. The poisons get flushed out of the body, but not all of it. And where does it go? It kind of attaches to certain organs, whether it be kidneys or liver or your heart or spleen or whatever it is, your gallbladder. And if you eat a lot of things that have color dyes, chemical preservatives, you're not going to get sick right away. So you think, oh, I'm doing okay, I'm doing great. But all of a sudden, just when you should be getting into your prime, into your 40s and your 50s, you start feeling like crap and you don't know what it is. It's because you've been ignoring all the warning signs and signals and the information out there about not eating foods with preservatives, pesticides, and chemicals. Because this is why people are dying in their 50s and 60s. And they're not living to ripe old age because they're eating the wrong foods and they're not supplementing and they're not caring about reading what's in that food. What is in there, by the way, and they're not reading that. And that's when eventually, I believe that's when they're going to get, a lot of people are getting sick way too early before their time.
You're spot on, Bruce. I agree with you. You explained it really well. So what is it is that they put fluoride in our water. There's a lot of other chemicals in there. And fluoride is really very toxic. It's neurotoxic. It affects and debilitates the brain, especially when you do it for long periods of time. They put it in people's toothpaste. Things like that cause a lot of the breakdowns. That's why Alzheimer's is on the rise and other neurodegenerative diseases. It's basically, health is eating healthy and doing chelation and other forms of getting the toxins out of your body, because in our society, everybody has high levels of mercury, lead, cadmium, and other metals in their bodies. And that slows down their process because they're giving off positive ions, which break down and slow the cell membrane from functioning well over time. So you need detox.
Let's take a step back for a second. I want to go over fluoride. And where did that come from? When did government start using fluoride?
It was sort of like a scandal. A lot of the coal products break down into fluorides, and they were accumulating. And these big companies, what is the big aluminum company? Alco.
I heard that it went as far back as World War II, and our enemy was using that to control their people.
Well, the Nazis did, and the Nazis put fluoride in all the prisoners because it lowers their aggressiveness, it lowers their sexual ability, and it destroys their brain, making them very docile. So they're doing the same thing in our water supply, which is unbelievable, but that's what's happening. That and other chemicals. So we just need to sort of purify our body and give it the nutrition and the minerals that it needs to function normally. And almost everybody that does that and gets enough oxygen into the body can heal.
So Alzheimer's is a growing problem. And
yes.
I don't know if it's very understood at all. Could you explain what you know about it medically, about Alzheimer's? And once someone gets it, can it be reversed? Is there anything they can do about it?
Well, what happens is that in the vessels in the brain, they start becoming, it's sort of like, the heart, when it gets bad, it gets filled with this hard plaque and it starts closing up and narrowing the aperture in the vessels. And then they stop getting adequate amounts of nutrients and oxygen to them. And that's when the cells start breaking down. So basically, as I no longer, of course, for many years have been doing the medical thing, I believe people should avoid all the pharmaceuticals as much as possible, because all pharmaceuticals are highly toxic over time. And if you read the PDR, the physician's desk reference, which is good if people are interested, and it tells you that they have all these noxious, deleterious effects on the body that, they're mind-boggling in a sense, and yet they show a pretty girl and some other fancy stuff, and people buy the stuff anyway, which is crazy. So what I do is I went to totally plant-based medicinals, which are could be like essential oils and different types of supplements. And that's really what's great, because pharmaceuticals, no matter what they are, they only treat the symptomology of what the patient's experiencing, whereas plant-based medicinals are amazing because they not only help with the symptoms, but they actually put the body into a healing mode. And that's the beauty of it. And that's what they don't want to recognize in this conventional money system that they've been farming us with for years.
Can you mention a couple of specific benefits to certain herbs and minerals that you can tell us offhand and how they could benefit us?
Absolutely. Um, well, let me just mention a couple of things before I do that. Like, people need to know that the RDA is not really accurate about what you need, and people need to have huge amounts of vitamin C in their body, because vitamin C is critical for all the enzymatic actions to take for healing, getting rid of infections and things like that. So I always try to put people, like I probably mentioned to you guys, about liposomal vitamin C, because it's concentrated, and unlike regular vitamin C, it's fat soluble. So once you put it in your mouth, it starts getting absorbed pretty quickly, and it builds up the vitamin C in your body. And I think that's critical. And there are other doctors that I've been working with and reading about, studying, that say, just give people high amounts of vitamin C intravenously, and it'll clear and alleviate most infections.
Are there different kinds of vitamin C? Because sometimes when I take a vitamin C, it felt like it was very acidic, and I didn't like it.
It is acidic. It is acidic. It's ascorbic acid. It's acidic for sure, but it changes in your body, and it works as an acid and then gets neutralized into more alkali substance, and it has a lot of good benefits. So that's where you need vitamins and minerals in your body. I mean, it's the minerals, even the trace minerals people don't know about. There are the 72 trace minerals that people need to get into their system on a fairly regular basis, so that all the biochemical actions can take place. Because if you're missing a specific enzyme and your body starts healing its place, and it says, oh, there's none of this boron or vanadium or some different one, it can't go ahead and function. So it tries to look through a different pathway. And sometimes that works, but then it slows the system down, and they're usually not as effective.
People are so, like, they when they get sick, they want to take a step back and go the conventional way, and take medicines and pharmaceuticals. I remember several doctors telling me, with all the commercials on TV, with big pharma selling all the drugs, people walk into doctors and they say, Dr. Jones, I want some of this, I want some of this chemical, I want some of this and some of that. And the doctor walks out giving them 4 different, prescriptions for the whatever they ask for. And the other crazy thing is, I just wait for the television commercials to start saying, so-and-so has proven it causes cancer, and this has proven it causes cancer. So a lot of the pharmaceuticals have terrible side effects eventually, and then you have to take another pharmaceutical to cure the problem that the new pharmaceutical has taken. So we believe in we're not going to put down the pharmaceutical industry at all, but we believe in taking a more natural route.
Without a doubt, you spot on again. It's all exactly what you're saying is true.
So give us a little bit more of an idea. We talked about vitamin C, and I know vitamin B is very, very important. Let's talk about the benefits of that.
Yeah, all the vitamins are necessary for all the biochemical actions that the body requires to heal. It needs to have adequate amounts of all of them. The RDA is okay for some of them, but it's not adequate. It's actually obsolete and can be updated and better. You need to have vitamins. You need to drink a lot of clean, healthy water without fluoride and chloride excess in it. That's critical. A lot of people walking around and they're getting sick and broken down and lethargic because they're dehydrated and they don't know it. You need to drink lots of water all day long, and not just like gulp it down. You need to sip it gently so it gets assimilated into the body, and it has a lot of good effects because our whole body really runs on water.
The 2 things that I've been trying to do, and we heard this with Danny and Brinkley and David Wilcock the other day, is about breathing, taking deep breaths, really taking in deep breaths. And I'm trying to drink more and more water. There's no doubt about it. And I think if we could do those 2 things, we'll be doing pretty well. But there's one thing that's become very controversial, especially during this pandemic, where you remember, like in March and April, they were telling everybody to stay inside. Don't even come out. The virus is so contagious that if you walk out of your house, you're going to get it, right? I mean, it's just crazy, some of the things that have been said. And one of the, when they tell people to stay in their house, to stay indoors, what they're doing is they're cutting people off from one of the most vital vitamins that there is in the world, and that's vitamin D. Because where does vitamin D come from? The sun. It's the best place to get vitamin D. And when they would tell us to stay home, I think somebody knew that they would be keeping us sick if we had to stay home and not get good old vitamin D from the sun.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, I take a whole look on it that this whole, what I call scamdemic, you know, is caused by people that are looking to politically interfere with our freedom. And if you know anything about a virus particles are beyond microscopic, so they'll go through any mask that you're wearing. So you're not getting any protection wearing a mask. Another thing is, if you watch the social economic harm that this is causing us from this pandemic thing, it's causing more problems and more deaths and more sickness than people just going back and having a normal life again. So I think if that's what we need to do. So what they did, it's not really a virus. It's more like biological warfare, what they did. I mean, it was a genetically modified COVID virus. So genetically modified mean it was laboratory done, so it's not a natural hybrid of virus. It was genetically manipulated by Gates, I believe. And these people are just trying to depopulate the world. And I believe that's true. He even speaks about it. I don't want to get political. I know this is not what we're supposed to talk about, but I think people need to start communicating and seeing other people again. Stop wearing masks except when they need to get into places, because it stops you from getting all the oxygen you need, and you're breathing in the same carbon dioxide and stuff. So it's a hindrance, and it will make you unhealthy.
Yeah, it's been such it's a crazy making environment that we're in. Even when I send around some videos from the WHO, which is, you know, they've confused the heck out of everybody. Not the band, not the band.
Gates owns the WHO.
Yeah, Gates owns the WHO. So the WHO just came out the other day saying that, you know, you don't need to. Fauci came out a couple months ago saying you don't need masks. You don't need masks. Don't wear masks. And then someone decided that you need masks. So is there any science behind that? I don't think so.
None.
I saw something in LinkedIn or one of those today where they quoted a Democratic female congresswoman saying that we need to keep all of the stores closed as much as possible until after the election. And that was really an eye-opener why a certain group of people would want to collapse our environment, our economy, for political reasons. I had a real tough time with that. And I'm hoping that, like for instance, they closed the pools down in March. My pool still is closed. My pool is still closed. And when I send around information about that, they tell me my information's wrong. They don't want to get sued. So here we are in weather in the middle 90s, and there's no pool, as if whatever this virus is going to spread from person to person in chlorinated water in 95-degree weather. I mean, flus are known to be here in the winter in the cold, but as soon as it heats up, all of a sudden the figures go way down. So it's just crazy making what's going on in the world right now.
Absolutely. And a lot of it is because, you know, the media is controlled by the pharmaceutical and insurance companies and the people that control the main media. So we're not getting real information. We're getting a lot of disinformation and commercial stuff that's just not really in our benefit.
And the people that are glued to their televisions, they have to realize who owns the television stations, and they have their own agenda. Many times it doesn't include the truth, which is really sad. We're not going to talk too much about that because we want to stay on the air and be here to report a lot more information. But I really want you've created a life enhancement training. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, life enhancement training is a system. I've been helping with people for many years in different ways, in different manners. I've been helping people get healthy physically, and I also spent a lot of time working in the psychiatric department, learning about people's minds and understanding what consciousness is and how people's individual thinking affects their well-being. Their thoughts affect their emotions affect their biochemistry, and their biochemistry affects their health. So basically, my philosophy is when your mind is totally balanced and attuned, your body will automatically heal itself, because that's how brilliant the mind is. It's only when you allow fear to come into your mind, which is what really runs our society, fear and anxiety-based tension. When you learn to make decisions based more out of understanding, love, and logic, coming from a different position, it has a different biochemical effect. If you're always taking things and you're allowing negativity to become part of you, instead of just saying, oh, well, I have a problem, and I can handle it, and I'll try and make it better, you will. If your own individual belief system and thought process needs to be unconditioned for most people, because they're readily triggered to have negative emotions. And when you have negative emotions, you get they're called the fight or flight, cortisol, adrenaline reactions. And when you're constantly stressed out, instead of that just being something to help you in an emergency, it becomes part of your system. Then your system starts breaking down, and the parasympathetic system doesn't start actualizing and working. And that's the part that works your immune system mostly.
This pandemic has really been an incredible experience for many people. And a lot of people have suffered terribly. Small businesses were not allowed to open when larger businesses were, which is mind-boggling to that decisions were made to keep small business closed when big corporations were able to open. It's been a time for me personally, when I came from a few years of working almost every day and working hard, and really not having a lot of time to investigate other avenues of life that were of interest to me. But since this has all closed everything down, schools, restaurants, I've had a time to do a lot of self-reflection. And my life has actually come together from having this time off to really figure out what I want to do in life and how to do it. So people need to get into a situation with themselves where, instead of calling a situation that they're going through as labeling it as bad, if they could change their mind and look at all the different possibilities that they've been introduced to them, getting closer to their families, getting closer to husbands and wives, being able to go to the beach, being able to relax, read books. Life has changed dramatically for a lot of people, and it's allowed me personally to slow down and figure out, rearrange what my goals were, rearrange things, and figure out really what I'd like to do in life. So I hope people out there take this opportunity, if they're labeling this situation as bad or terrible. Even small businesses, there are small business loans that are out there that you can apply for that will be forgiven. You don't even have to pay them back. So if anybody has a small business that has suffered tremendously, you can get loans. So this is very typical of how you can take something that appears bad and make it into something terrific. And I like what you've done. You started your practice as a doctor and looked around and said something is very wrong, and said, you said I could do this better. And that's the approach that you've taken for years since you've left. So I'd like to hear what you see for the future, and the future starts tomorrow. What do you see happening in the future? What do you see your role in all of this? And I know this is a lot, but how do you see the world coming together or not coming together in the next year or so?
Well, that's huge. There are a lot of possibilities. I don't think that I have any definitive answer on any of them. In my own little world, I try to meet as many people as I can and try to share my philosophy and healthcare system ideas with them, because I believe it'll be effective and give them a better quality health than just sort of suffering with a lot of the mainstream doctors and stuff that they build up to be more incredible than they are. Half the doctors don't even know what they're talking about. A lot of times but they're so built up in the commercials and, oh, just ask your doctor. And, so it goes to their ego, and it's a little bit crazy. So I try to ground people. I try to tell them that there are a lot of these things. As I mentioned earlier, I try to get people using plant-based medicinals, because that's really where you're going to get regeneration from on your cells and your bodily organisms. And I try to give people positive thinking. I try to help them lose their current thought systems many times when they're just on a negative basis. And I find that that's really people's biggest problem, because they fell for the heavy duty indoctrination coming from the main media. And most people are not open-minded enough to take in the possibility that there are other avenues up there where they can really benefit from. So that's the biggest problem from my perspective in dealing with it.
We have a few people watching right now live.
Right.
We could take the next couple of minutes. If you have any questions, go to your chat button on the bottom in the middle and ask Dr. Steve a question. Or you could ask me a question, but most likely Dr. Steve, if you have a question, something we went over that we weren't clear about. Sometimes we go too fast, and we know what we're talking about, but sometimes you want us to talk more about a subject. So over the next minute or so, if you want to ask a question, you can do that. And so the other thing that I want people to know is how can people get in touch with you, and why should people get in touch with you? How can you help people?
Well, if people are suffering through ailments, or they just want to make sure that their life gets healthier so that the systems don't break down in this very toxic environment, they can email me. I have a body scan that works similar to like an EKG or an EEG, and it tells me a lot about what's going on in all the various different systems, circulatory system. It tells me a lot about your heart, your endocrine system, and different things. So I get a good understanding or a baseline about what's happening in your body chemically and otherwise. And I help people balance it out through doing real nutritions that work in their body. I help them get rid of things, but doing gentle detox programs. And if people are really in danger and they're suffering from some severe pathologies, I try to send them to places where they do use ozone and other things like that, when they can really help heal them, because I think that's what we need to institute into our society, is like ozone clinics that can help people, because I think that's the key, because we're just oxygen breathing machines. Like you mentioned earlier, we need to breathe in more. Well, we do, because we generally stop getting enough oxygen in our body. And when that happens, our system starts slowing down. And then as we age, and that keeps happening, and all the toxins from foods and other sources in our body, that's when it breaks down and we don't get oxygen in there. So when we can get more oxygen in, and it doesn't work through hyperbaric, although in some certain circumstances that is helpful and good, but it's not the same as ozone. It's like totally different method and effect. And that's what people need to do to really get their energy supply and oxygenation back to heal and to go on.
Wow, how valuable would that be to have someone like you on their team when they're going through some medical situations and they want coaching, they want someone to be there for them. So how invaluable is that to have someone as knowledgeable as you, not just about medical, Western medicine, but about Eastern medicine and
Yes.
natural medicine and natural foods. Someone is asking, when you recommend plant-based health, do you mean such as herbs? Do you mean herbs? If so, capsules or teas, or in what form is best?
All
Thank
of the
you,
above.
Melissa.
All of the above, Melissa. Capsules are great. Teas are great. I live next to an Indian bazaar where they send over these really great plant-based medicinals. They're huge and they have such powerful benefits that they're not even known to this, basic country system. That keep you healthy. They help build up your immune system. They help clean your blood. They have all kinds of really beautiful properties, and I do them all the time, and I try to turn people on to them.
Ayurvedic, she's asking.
A lot of it is Ayurvedic.
What is that?
Ayurvedic was from the Vedic systems going back thousands of years ago. It was by the ancient Hindus. They had somehow knowledge of healing and how to live life in a very different way. And a lot of their information is, if you go to like different countries and you learn about it, they have different ways of healing, just like the Chinese did. And a lot of their different approaches have a lot of benefits that we don't take advantage. Like a lot of people need acupuncture. And acupuncture is great because it unclogs the electrical system and opens up the meridians or the chakras and starts getting more electrical flow to all different parts of the body. And that's necessary for health. So that's, there are a lot of acupuncturists around here, but enough people don't take advantage of it because they don't see the benefit. You have to, what I did is I went around and I took little bits from all the things that I thought were really valuable and put them together into one system. And I help people with that.
So, when you mention teas, my wife and I have a cupboard full of teas. We don't drink them, but there's a cupboard.
They don't work it that way.
And I say to myself, I drink this tea. Is it really helping me? I don't understand. Am I really getting any benefit? And then I don't do it, okay? Because I'm not seeing my whole body improve within an hour or two, my whole health improve within a whole hour or two. Although Cindy says that if we take elderberry and her special drinks, that we really will improve, and there's no doubt about that.
Well, Cindy's right.
Lauren wanted me to make sure that you talk more about your machine because it's the future, it's now, and wow, what insight into the body. We've done it. I've done it. Lauren's done it. So valuable. The information is so valuable. I wish I could do all the things that you want us to do, but at least we have the information. So talk a little bit more about that.
Well, when I was visiting in Israel, I met doctors there, and the medical technology in Israel is way advanced to anything we have in this country, as it is in Germany and other European countries, France, and they have a body scan that I just mentioned it earlier. It works the same way on electricity, except in just giving you very specific information, let's say about the heart. What they did is they reprogrammed the software differently so that it gives you information about the functioning of all the different organs in a general way. And there are better body scans than even the one I have, which can get as specific and tell you about everything that's going on, what viruses, bacteria you have in your body. I mean, the technology out there is Star Trek brilliant. And it's just a matter of whether who takes advantage of it or not. Some of the hospitals, like in South Miami, they're starting to use body scans now, but it's sort of looked upon adversely in the regular system. And the beauty of it is that you don't need to do all the blood tests, and you don't need to do a lot of the unnecessary tests and things. If you use this test, it's accurate, it's good, it's reproducible, and all medical people should have it.
It's not intrusive, it's easy, it's simple, and it's incredibly accurate.
But it doesn't get reimbursed from the insurance company.
Well, it may someday when everything turns around.
Hopefully that will come true, Bruce.
So I want you to tell people how to get in touch with you, not your cell number or anything, or you have to decide whether you want to leave an email or a website, because people this video, this broadcast is going to live on for years. And there'll
Beautiful.
be
I love that.
people months and years from now who are going to be watching this, and they're going to say, I want to get in touch with Dr. Steve.
Awesome, awesome. Well, people can just email me. My email is docsteve, DOCSTEVE 77 @gmail.com. And if you email me and leave your telephone number or your email, telephone number is better actually for me to get back to you. And if you want to find out how I can help you, I'll be glad to work with you.
Now, you know, some people can work with people distance-wise. Are you in any way capable of helping people distance-wise?
In a sense, I am. I can give people like general products that I've been using over the many years that I know are effective that will help everybody, like I did for you guys, like with the liposomal vitamin C and the iodine.
The iodine.
Critical, and I have a special iodine. And the liposomal vitamin C is out there, but people don't know enough to take advantage of it. Yeah, I can help just give you good information. And if you tell me what symptomology is ailing you or what's going on in your life, I can generally give you good advice.
And when they come to South Florida, they can definitely call you up and make an appointment with you and come and see you.
I'm here.
I know a lot of people are going to want to come and see you, Dr. Steve. I want to thank you so much for being on the show. You know, we've covered a lot, and I know there's so much more to cover. But this has been great, and lots and lots of people need to see this broadcast. So I hope everyone sends this around once they see it, and let people know that their health issues are not, you know, terminal.
They're workable. They're workable from a different perspective than they're familiar with.
Great, great. So thank you again, Dr. Steve
Thank you, Bruce.
Lanoff, my buddy from Roosevelt High School.
Really a great pleasure.
Who
Great
knew?
pleasure.
Thank you, everybody, for being in the room and for watching this for months and years later. If you want to contact me, you can. My email is Bruce@Bruce Starr Productions, and you can contact me if you actually have special guests that have a lot of information that need to be put out into the world. You can contact me, and we could talk about having them on as a future guest. So good night, everybody. Bye-bye, everybody, and we'll see you
Good night. Thank you.
very soon.